All right, so we're in the first chapter, and Bill Batke is not here, so he doesn't have his translation in front of him. I thought we were going to spend just a minute or two going over the way Rami Shapiro translated the ending of the statement by Shimon ben Shetach when he generalized it into a different kind of teaching rather than just a court-oriented. Don't lead the witnesses with your questioning and so on. Does anybody remember what he was driving at? No? Okay, good. So look at that. Speak of the devil. Speak of the devil. Bill, where are you? There you are. I was just bemoaning your absence because I wanted you to do us the favor of rereading for us Rami Shapiro's reinterpretive translation of the last statement from Shimon ben Shetach in Mishnah 9. No, you have to unmute. Unless you're laughing, you have to unmute. If you laugh, you can stay muted.
I'm so obsessed with the muting and unmuting. The last part of Mishnah 9 is hear only what you want to hear rather than what is true.
Now go a little earlier than that.
Lest you reveal your bias and hear only what you want to hear rather than what is true.
Okay, so in other words, so start. You know what? I'm sorry. Read the whole.
That's better. Okay. Shimon ben Shetach teaches, question matters deeply and be careful with your phrasing, lest you reveal your bias and hear only what you want to hear rather than what is true.
Okay, so anybody want to comment on this commentary?
That's totally different than the.
It is. It is. He's internalizing the whole thing. He's not saying it's about the witnesses. He's talking about you and about how you speak, how each one of us speaks. It's obviously it's something of a stretch, but he's
completely made up. I mean, it's not at all with this completely different, like not even related.
Well,
but it's very relevant though. It's really relevant. I mean, in terms of
if it's wrong, as long as it's relevant. Go ahead.
Right, it's really relevant. I mean, about not sort of slanting what you said so that in effect it can become sort of untrue, so biased, but also not just listening for what you want to hear. I mean, we talk about everybody now living in bubbles, and listening to the news that just reflects what they want to believe. And this is sort of like a don't do that. So just an anecdote, I used to go visit my dad, and we'd get there and he would be like raging because he was really upset about what he had heard on Fox News. And we would say to him, Dad, why don't you just stop watching Fox News? And he would say, no, you've got to listen. You've got to hear what the other person is saying.
Okay, so that's actually brings us to what he is doing, though, is actually putting the other person inside your own psyche. He's saying something else. He's not saying, watch out what you say because other people will misinterpret what you're saying. Read it one more time, nice and slow. And listen to what he says.
Shimon ben Shetach, he spells the name differently, teaches, question matters deeply and be careful with your phrasing, lest you reveal your bias and hear only what you want to hear rather than what is true.
Right. So he's saying you speak a certain way. If you're not careful with the way you yourself speak, your own biases will come out naturally in the way you say things. And then you will only hear what you want to hear. He's constantly internalizing it and turning it back into you, which is a challenging idea. We think that we say what we mean. And sometimes actually we are caught up short when we hear that when something comes out of our mouth that we didn't know that we actually thought. We didn't know that we actually believe that. Let's say you curse somebody out and you use some racist epithet to somebody. Let's say you're driving or something, and all of a sudden you go, "Oh my God, did I just do that? Me, gentle, fair, unracist person, and that came out of So is that? And that's our question: is it me or is it somebody else who's in me?
This is getting at this is almost like if you like doing opinion polls. depending on how you state the question, you could
Absolutely.
get very, very different answers. So if watch how you say things, because then the person responding to you might sort of figure out, oh, that's what they want to hear. I'm going to say it. Also, like as a teacher, right? Where students try and figure out not what the answer is, but what I want to hear, so they can get all the points. Yeah.
So that's why I'm insisting here that it goes beyond this. What he's doing, if that were the case, then I think John's objection would be really weak. No, it's not a stretch. It's completely different. That, to me, is stretching the interpretation beyond the courtroom from you watch out what you say so that other people, when they hear it, won't come to conclusions or respond to you the way you want. Here he's saying, watch out for yourself. Watch out how you speak. When you speak, you may actually influence yourself in the way that you think. If you let yourself speak certain ways, that will actually condition you and make it possible for your biases or your misperceptions or your laziness to take over. It's a pretty challenging idea. All right. So now, and we're going to come back a little bit to some of the things that have been brought up, that was Sarita, what you said, well, soon, but I don't know exactly when. But now we're up to Mishnah 10. I don't want to make any promises, Lou. So Mishnah 10, the new couple in town, right? The new zug, the new duo of spiritual leaders and legal leaders of the proto-rabbinic community. So this is Shmaya and Avtalion, Mishnah 10. So can somebody please read that for us?
I'll read.
All right, and then and Bill will be at the ready to give us an alternative twist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shemaiah and Avtalion received the tradition from the preceding. Shemaiah said, "Love work, hate lordship, and seek no intimacy with the ruling power." Okay.
So again, a tripartite statement, 3 pieces to the statement. And the first one is, Havet harab et hamalacha, love work. Malacha could be translated as labor, also constructive work. The word malacha is a technical term used in, for instance, in Sabbath law. We're not allowed to do malacha on Shabbat. So that means work that actually has some kind of agency. It has the word malach in that word. A malach is an angel, a messenger, an agent. So malacha is work that ends up achieving a purpose. So love that. And then hate, and your translation, Craig, what was your translation? You have to unmute.
Sorry about that. Hate lordship.
Hate lordship.
I have shun clerics.
Shun clerics. Now there's a good piece of advice.
There we go.
There you go.
I have acting the superior.
Okay, this is interesting. We're getting a lot of translations here. Okay, what else? Lynn, you have one?
I had John's, that hate acting the superior.
Hate acting the superior. Okay, any more? Bring them on, bring them on. Eileen.
Hate positions of domination.
Hate positions of domination.
That's from Sim Shalom.
Okay, that's from Sim Shalom, so it must be right. Yeah.
So I have this, I have the translation that Craig has, hate lordship, but in the note, it goes on to say, shun office, hate domineering, hate playing the superior over your fellows. It hardens the heart and destroys the finer feeling in him who lords it over others.
Okay, so that's an expansion, taking a lot of these translations into account. Very good. All right, Bill, come on.
No, Josie already said it.
Yeah.
Okay, what was that one?
Shun clerics.
Shun clerics. All right,
Shun
so
clerics.
that's
Isn't that the opposite? Isn't a cleric like a person of lower stature?
no, a cleric means a clergy person.
A rabbi primarily.
Office work. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. No, not a clerk. Not a clerk.
Not clerk.
No, no, no.
Who
Okay.
does clerical
all right.
work, but a
Okay.
clerk, a person of the cloth.
But even still, why would you
I'm
shun
surprised
them?
nobody said haberdashers or something like that.
Right.
But nobody said that.
Why would you hate
Yeah.
the clergy? Why
Right.
would they tell you to hate the person of the clergy?
So it doesn't mean hate the person, it means hate the office. In the Hebrew, it's usna, hate. You know, some people don't like the word hate, so they put shun in or avoid as a it's the opposite of the previous attitude that you're supposed to have to labor, to work, which you're supposed to embrace. Rabbanut is the Hebrew word, Rabbanut. Rabbanut, the chief rabbinate in Israel, is Harabbanut Harashit. So Rabbanut means rabbinate. Now, the word rabbi, which again, at this point is not, that's why there's a little bit of an anachronism in saying clerical, that this is clerics. Rabbi as a title didn't exist yet. The rabbis were called rabbis because the word Rav simply means master. And that could be your boss. You have, every slave has a master. So if you are a slave working in some farm or something, the person who is making you do the work is your Rav, is your master. So because it means extra, it means higher. From the word harbe, a lot. Or we say that God is Rav Chesed, abundant in love, has so much love, so much more than usual, right? So above and beyond. So the Rav is the one who is above everybody else in a hierarchy, the one on top. So yeah, John.
Well, I don't know if we're at the analysis part yet, but this makes me think of actually two things.
What happened when you were 3?
What?
I'm trying to do some analysis.
Oh.
Tell me when you were 3 years old, what happened?
I don't remember. So it reminds me of tenure for professors, and it reminds me of what a journalist should be. They should like to do their work, and they should hate authority over them, telling them what to do, and they should not draw near to the regulatory people. So they have independence. So if you're searching for truth, you have to not be swayed by your boss, by the government, by the ruling authority, and just do your work. I mean, a lot of problems we have in journalism now is that people, they get cozy with politicians, and they should really stay away. They should not be friends with politicians.
So let's go to the third piece here, and then come back to try to see if that sheds light on the middle piece. The third piece is al titvada larashut. So, and the translation there, Craig, one more time.
And seek no intimacy with the ruling power.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, mine says do not get cozy with the government.
Ooh. All right.
Yeah.
And any other little variations? Yes, Lynn.
Safaria just says, do not attempt to draw near to the ruling authority. So it's very similar in that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything
Do not make
substantially
yourself
different?
known to authorities.
Don't make yourself known to authorities. All right. Keep your head low and don't be noticed. So that's a little bit different. But everybody is translating the Rashut as the authorities, the people in power, right? So how is that different than the Rabbanut, right? The bosses. So it seems that the simplest explanation that most people offer is the first 2 phrases are about you. What are you doing with yourself? Love to do work and do not seek higher position. Do not seek to be everybody else's boss. The third one is, and there are people who are going to be bosses. In fact, there's going to be a political regime of authority. Remember, these are all people who are trying to lead a Jewish community that is under the authority of the Romans. So watch out for them. right? So that's the third part. The third part is about those authorities. The middle part is, what's your own ambition? What do you want to be? Do you want to boss people around, or do you want to just do an honest day's work? And that's the simplest way of looking at this, is love being able to do some good work. And don't seek to be the person who pushes everybody else around. And then the third one is, and it follows actually a little bit from that idea, because the people who push other people around, you have to watch out for them. Don't trust them so much. Yeah, John.
I love how subversive it is.
And of course, this is a boss saying this.
Couldn't you also look at it
the head of the Jewish community saying this? Yeah.
If the word is Rabbanut, couldn't you also say, love to work, don't listen to your own bosses, your own authorities, and don't listen to the external government authorities? Like that's the difference, it seems.
No, they would never say that, because you have to listen to your own authorities.
Well, then why is it Rabbanut?
Rabbanut means lording over, right? Do not love the idea of lording over other people, right? It's the status of being such a person. And as I said, let's take this really from in context. This is a person who has Rabbanut. This is a person who has authority. This is a person who is has power within the Jewish community. Doesn't have power, vis-a-vis the Roman government, right? But within the Jewish community, he is trying to assert his power. To a certain extent, I think that he's saying, don't think it's such a great thing. Don't love it, that's for sure. You may need to take it on. Did Moses love the boss of the Jewish people?
No, he was worn out.
Now, this was part of the Korach Moses conflict, that Korach was saying, you're taking this on because you really want it. In fact, he says, Rav Lachem, says, you're taking too much on. You're looking for self-aggrandizement. You've got your own ego that you're trying to satisfy. You want the power. You want the power. Now, there's a difference between having power and wanting power.
Yeah.
Without power, guess what? Here's the tautology. Without power, you're powerless. How many people want to be powerless? How many communities want to be powerless? Being powerless is not so great. So power is really essential. The question is, how does it get exercised? By whom? With what kind of attitude? For what purpose? In what measure? How much? When? Where? How does it get applied and why? It's yes, we have the famous saying that always gets misreported, and I'm probably power corrupts, etc. Watch out, right? Absolute power. So, but here is Shmaya, who is a powerful person in the Jewish community, and he's saying, just don't love it. Yeah, John wanted to say something.
So I think it's interesting that the work, loving work, is linked to, right before don't lord it over people. Because, you need to have leaders. You need to have authority. If you're leading people, even, when I do my work in the theater, I'm leading electricians. I'm leading people who are, working with me and sort of for me. And you have to have authority, but I think it's interesting that work is linked to it. Like if I walk in and I've never done this kind of work, or I'm not working and I start bossing people around, you don't have sort of a moral authority as if you're someone who's doing it, right? We see him doing his work. He's on the ladder too. That gives you a different level of leadership. So I just think it's interesting that those are very tightly linked. That do the work first.
Josie, then Sarita, yeah. And then Eileen.
It sort of goes against the value of let's get ahead and we want our kids to be top students. And get the awards and be in this culture, we strive for getting to the top. That's sort of
Right.
always
Right.
out there.
Not just in this culture, the Jewish American experience
Yeah, get ahead.
is it is turning a substantially, predominantly blue collar community and turning it into a white collar community, right? The Jews in Europe and the Jews in the United States when they first got here were predominantly working class. They did, if they had businesses or they were peddlers, they did hard work. They were laborers. In Europe, they worked their butts off as physical laborers. Of course, they had an intellectual elite and they had values about studying and so on. And they were basically more literate than everybody than the surrounding culture. But they weren't academics. They weren't allowed to be academics. They were workers. They worked with their hands. So the whole history of the modern Jewish experience has been being emancipated and then getting ahead, and becoming the consultant rather than the person doing the work. Sarita, you wanted to speak.
Yeah, a few points. One is I was thinking is this, that the loving work is sort of focusing on your own work, and not like sort of looking at what other people are doing to lord it over them or criticize or what have you. So that was one thing. There's a couple of comments here, the commentary that are really interesting because the commentary on love work is about not looking down on manual labor, pointing out that most of the eminent scholars were in fact manual laborers, and that the prizing of different, education and that high class stuff it comes from the Greeks and Romans because idleness was a mark of nobility. So that seems to go along with what Josie was talking about is what kind of work is it or what kind of life do you value? On the last one, the seek no intimacy, the commentary here talks about how it's never prudent to come under the notice of a despotic government. So that sort of frames the whole thing on sort of do your own work, bother everybody else and try and lord it over them in terms of their own work, and keep yourself to yourself so that you don't get under the notice of sort of evil people or something like that. It's kind of interesting how it reframes the whole thing.
Good. Yes, Eileen.
I was going to say something similar to what Josie said, but it also sounds like it's telling you to sort of fly under the radar.
The last thing very much is about that.
Yeah. But if you totally do that, then you kind of are stuck. And as Josie said, what about personal ambition, bettering yourself? It leaves you in a
let's recognize
rung one of the ladder.
Right. Let's recognize the social political context of people's lives. When we talk about the recent upsurge and change in American Jewish life or in the contemporary culture per se, that's a very different socio-political reality than the reality of the Jewish people living under Roman rule 2,000 years ago, or in many other places. We still have this capitalistic environment which encourages everybody to try to get out there and succeed, right? Guess what? If you're in the Soviet Union or the former Soviet Union, you're not gonna wanna actually go out there and feel that you have all kinds of dreams and ambitions that you can realize. In totalitarian societies, where you are afraid of the powers that be, the best advice is keep your head down, mind your own business, right? Just do what you need to do to survive. So there's both a glorious way to look at this kind of advice, and an ethical kind of set of priorities. The integrity of your own work is important. Bossing other people around is not where you should be getting your jollies. But then there's also a survival, a very practical, aspect of this, where he's saying, if we're going to get through this, you're right, we're not going to make much progress now. Right now, what we need to do is survive. And then a better day will eventually come. Right? And this, of course, is, different people have different attitudes about that. Do you want to shake it up, or do you want to just get through it? Lynn, yeah.
There's no individualism. So I know that capitalism is linked to individualism, but it seems to me that they're two separate things. This is about the whole community and survival of the community. And I think it was someone once in some class said that in the ancient world, once the civilizations were conquered, that was the end of them. They totally assimilated into the new regime. And Jews were different in that they assimilated as much as they had to or wanted to, but they kept their religion, they kept their practices, they kept their laws. So there really is no me, me, me. It's all about, staying together as a group against this other group.
So that's an interesting and complicated question. Is there individualism in that first piece of advice? When it says love your work, is there a way to find individualism in that? That's one thing where I think that there's more to think about. We don't have time for today. And the other thing is, capitalism talks about individualism, but in the end, capitalism is about creating herd consensus and a herd culture that makes everybody just end up being not at all individualistic. So that's another thing for us to think about, but not for today. So Geraldine made it for today, and like I said, I promised that I would try to do a little zecher, a little remembrance of blowing the shofar for this month of Elul. So I'm going to try my best. Here we go, and then we're going to have to conclude. Sorry. A zecher, a symbolic.
You finally got it. Good.
Thank you.
Okay, next time hopefully we'll be
Thank
better.
you. Have
Okay.
a good week, everybody. Thank
Stay
you.
safe, everybody.
Next week we will be meeting. Talmud will not be meeting. I'll mention that next time. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Have a good week, everybody. Stay safe.
Have a good week.
Bye.
Bill, are you still there?